I have a bunch of book reviews for you. I have decided that once a month I am going to review all of the books that I had read in the previous month. Let's get started. So the first book is Emergency Contact by Mary H.K. Choi. Here is what it looks like. My gold has gotten a little bit rubbed off because I would throw this in my backpack when we were going places. I really enjoyed this book. It's about Penny Lee, who she has just graduated high school and is starting college. Her mom's a single mom. She has kind of a little bit of a tumultuous relationship with her mom. And then Sam, who he is 21 and he just feels like he's stuck in life, stuck in this job at a coffee shop and not kind of just spinning his wheels, not really being able to move forward and progress in life the way that he wants to. And how they become friends, eventually come into this relationship with each other. Penny meets Sam through her roommate. It's just about their relationship and about how they talk in the book about how your emergency contact doesn't have to be somebody that you know in your real true life and that you see every day and everything like that, that it can be somebody that you just have this text relationship with, and that you can build this rapport, kind of like making internet friends and then finally meeting in person, and you have such a connection already because you have talked for so long through text, through messages, things like that. So it was a really good book. It is one that I would suggest reading. There is a language in it, but there's not really any sort of like open door sexual scenes. This one is more of an honorable mention book because it is a book that I grew up reading. I love this book. It is one of my favorite books. I purchased it because I wanted to have a copy of it in my house. And it is To Kill a Mockingbird. There's such a big spot in my heart for this book. I think the first time I read this book, I was like 12 or 13, and then I read it again in high school as a required reading for one of my English classes. I think I read it again in college just because this is probably my 4th or 5th time reading this book, and it was just because I wanted to read it, not because I was being forced to read it. So I just really love this story in the book, and Scout and Jem and Atticus and the whole storyline. But if you haven't read it, I would highly suggest picking it up and reading it. I feel like a lot of the stuff that is talked about in this book is actually very applicable in our climate of the world today, especially here in the US. And so it is just still one that just still near and dear to my heart. Just love it and will probably read it still multiple times over throughout my life. Definitely not the last time I will be reading it. And the next book, this one, I'm going to preface this by saying I'm not sure how. So I got this book at a blind date with a book at a bookstore that's local here in Salt Lake called the King's English Bookshop. So this is the book that I got, but it's an uncorrected proof. So that's why I'm not sure how it ended up in this blind date with a book, but I really enjoyed the story. It was such a good story. It was Manila Takes Manhattan. I think that's how you say it. Again, another story that there were definitely, this is one that I would have really liked to read on my Kindle so that I can highlight different things to like either understand what the translation was or like what the word meant, because it is 2 Filipino characters. One is from the Philippines. He is a music producer. And then the other one, she is an actress that was born and raised in the US. And so there was a lot of cultural things that while I didn't quite understand it, like reading the book, I understood the significance of it, if that makes sense. The author did a great job of using her words and this is by Carla de Guzman. I didn't say that, but the author, she did a great job of helping you understand how important it was, even if you didn't understand what it was. This is another one that I think in the climate that we're in America today a lot of people could relate to. That's what I related it to. It was a great story about which path do you choose when there's 2 things that you love, a career that you love and a person that you love. Like, who which pathway do you go and do you choose? Or are you able to figure out a way to choose both pathways and go and do both things? So this was a really great story. And this one is a little bit spicier. It is not closed door. It is open door. This one, I read this one because somebody gave it to my daughter. It was one I was reading the info on it and was like, this might be a bit, just a hair too old for her. So I wanted to read it just to see if it was going to be a good one for her. It doesn't have the paper wraparound anymore because it is a hardback, but it's called The Great Unexpected, and it is by the author Sharon Creech, and she's the one that wrote like Walk Two Moons. That's the biggest one that I know her from. This one was a really interesting book. I think she'll really enjoy this when she gets to it because it's, I want to say it's probably 1920s, 1930s America. It doesn't really say though. I don't think it ever gives you a year. Just looking at just like context clues, I want to say it's like the early 1900s America, anywhere between, I would say 1900 to 1930, maybe even a little into the 1940s. But it's a little girl, she's an orphan who is living with her caretakers and her best friend who is also an orphan. And then so it's told from her perspective that there's this boy that comes into town that nobody knows who he is, and her friend meet, and they both kind of get crushes on him. But then there's also this perspective of this lady back in Ireland, and you can tell that the lady back in Ireland knows someone that is in this little girl's life. You just don't know who it is at the time. It's really interesting because it's this lady back in Ireland and like the things talking about sending people to America to try and find this person and talk to this person and how that's going. I'm not going to tell you what the twist is because there is a little bit of a, oh, that's not what I was expecting to have happen when it came to when you finally got to figure out who this lady was that was in Ireland, as well as who the little boy was that they met. I can't really say too much without it being spoiled, but when they say the great unexpected, it really is the great unexpected. But in the end, it does have happy endings for the little girls, and it's just, it was such a cute story and such a, honestly, a twist that I was not expecting. So if you have a little girl, like I would say this is good for probably ages, I would say like 10 to 13, maybe even 14. My little girl is 10, so I think she is young enough to be able to read this and understand it and enjoy it. So I'm so excited for her to read it and tell me what she thought about it. So this one hurts my heart that I did not enjoy it, but I didn't really like this book. I wanted to so bad. And just because I love the other book that this author has written so much. But there were so many inconsistencies between the two stories. I felt like the editing was done differently versus from the first book towards this book. And then I learned why. And so it is the book Go Set a Watchman. It is Harper Lee's second novel. So the reason that there's so many inconsistencies between the two stories is because this was actually her first written book. She wrote this book before she wrote To Kill a Mockingbird. I do like what the story is about. It is about growing up and realizing that those people that you had such high regards for or looked up to as heroes while you were growing up are also human, essentially, is the main premise of the story is Scout learning that Atticus is not as great of a man as she thought he was in her mind, and learning that he also is human and he also has flaws, isn't perfect all of the time, which for a little girl who just absolutely adores her dad is a hard reality to come to. It is another one that within today's political climate that we are living in very much so applies. This one does take place 20 years after To Kill a Mockingbird. There is one character that is not in this one because they had since passed away within those 20 years. I'm not going to say who it was, but there is a character that has passed away. And so I think that plays kind of a role in why Scout clings so hard to who this man she thought Atticus is. And ultimately just becomes so heartbroken because she realizes he's not as great of a man as he's not as high up on the pedestal as she really thought he was when she was younger. you know, and Scout is living in New York now, and so she only comes home to visit once or twice a year. I didn't enjoy the story as much as I enjoyed To Kill a Mockingbird. I wouldn't dissuade somebody from reading it, but I don't think I would encourage somebody to read it either. I kind of want to reread it without having To Kill a Mockingbird so fresh in my mind, because I went from To Kill a Mockingbird straight into this. I liked what the story was about. I don't know that I liked not how it was done, but almost the execution of it, like with the inconsistencies and things like that. So it breaks my heart because, like I said, To Kill a Mockingbird is one of my absolute favorite books that I have ever read, but that's just how life goes. You can love one thing from a person and not love another thing, and it's okay. If you have read any of these 5 books, Go Set a Watchman, To Kill a Mockingbird, and then Emergency Contact, Manila Takes Manhattan, and The Great Unexpected. If you've read any of them, let me know what you thought of them down in the comments. And if you enjoyed them just like I did, or if you didn't enjoy them and why you didn't enjoy them. If you have a book that you want me to review, also drop that down in the comments for me to add to my list. If you enjoyed these reviews, please don't forget to subscribe and click that like button, and we will talk to y'all in the next one. I hope you have a wonderful, beautiful, and amazing day just like you are. Bye!